Tell us, how do we know if we're talking too loudly?
Keep it real.
Checking connection.
We on? There's a jet flying overhead. They allow those now?
We live?
Military.
We go?
You want to get
I
started?
feel like I'm on Wayne's World in the beginning.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Peachy Canyon Winery. I'm Jake, and he's Josh, and we're the Beckett brothers. Sorry, I'm being sarcastic.
We're here, we're coming live from the Mustang Springs Ranch. We're actually in one of 3 tank rooms here at the winery, and Jake and I are trying to do our first interactive online live webinar tasting.
Yeah, wine tasting, right here at the heart of Peachy Canyon Winery. For those of you who don't know, I think we should just assume that not everybody knows the entire history. Peachy Canyon was started in 1988 by our parents, Doug and Nancy Beckett. And the reason it's called Peachy Canyon is because that is the road that we lived on when we were little kids, and the spot that they raised us. At that time, when our folks first started making wine, Zinfandel was a varietal that they both fell in love with and thought was something that was sort of untapped resource around here and something that grew well and really didn't have a whole lot of play in our industry as far as Paso wines. In fact, there weren't many Paso wines at all at that time. So they launched Peachy making red Zinfandels. And to this day, that's what we're known for, is making red Zinfandels, among other wines, but Zin's really our claim to fame. And today, we will be tasting the Westside Zinfandel, which is, well, we'll get into more details later. Josh, my brother here, he heads up all the operations. So he would be the director of production, because we do have a head winemaker, Robert Henson here. And I do kind of hover around everything. So I handle the sales side. However, we have a sales manager, Skylar Stuck. So we have a pretty dynamic team of about 18 employees here at Peachy, 2 of which are hovering around us right now and distracting us. And the others just are taking a lunch break in the kitchen that you can't see, that's behind you, not us. Tank's behind us. Taking a lunch break from packing your wine club shipment if you happen to be a part of our wine club. So like I said, today we're going to be pouring the Westside. Did you know they opened?
No.
The Petites open the Westside.
I will open the Westside.
Great. I actually like that Petite Syrah. I just noticed that our classic Petite, honest mistake, it looks just like the Westside. It just happens to be Petite Syrah, not Zinfandel. But we're going to talk about it at the end, and it looks like we get to taste it too. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the Westside. I think some questions are popping up here and there. Maybe, maybe not. If you have any questions, feel free to somehow blast them in. I'm not technologically savvy at all. So somehow use your wizardry to put it into our screen, and then we'll do our best to answer your questions. But Josh is going to go ahead and pop the top of this Westside. Westside, we call it Westside because it is from the west side of Paso Robles, which is the Santa Lucia mountain range. The west side of Paso tends to be more hilly, a little tougher farming, tougher growing conditions. So we end up with naturally lower yields, but more intense fruit, we feel, for this Zin program. So, and we happen to have 5 vineyards on the west side of town that we grow Zinfandel on each of those. So this is a really nice west side semi-estate Zin. Eventually it will be 100% estate. That's our goal. We've got a couple of our ranches that have blocks of Zinfandel that are just now coming online that we'll be able to incorporate into this program at some point, and we will have 100% estate Westside Zin. When that happens, game on. This one's rad, but it's going to be radder. Not sure if that's grammatically correct, but there you go. I'm gonna let Josh talk because I obviously have diarrhea mouth this morning. We've been packing wine clubs and I was going insane, and here you have it.
Yeah, Jake and I get to take a little break from packing wine clubs, which is nice. Everybody's got to keep at it, but we are definitely, we'll bounce back and forth. Family owned and operated, which means we still do a little bit of everything. Jake was on, over at our snow vineyard the last couple of days on a tractor mowing and getting ready, and I was on the tractor here on the hills cultivating for our dry farm stuff, for our 30 acres of dry farm grapes we have here at Mustang Springs. The west side is, like Jake said, this is something of a combination of our estates. It is a wine that we are fortunate to have in the broad market, or Jake and Skylar reach out to some wine that you can find at your local grocery stores, local restaurants.
That's why we picked it for this.
Yeah, we wanted to
pilot.
start with something that everybody could get their hands on. And we're very fortunate over the years, we've also been able to source excellent Westside Zinfandel from the mountains here in Paso. There's a lot of other dry farm zins besides ours. There's the DeBost vineyards and the Dodds and the Baileys and the Keatons and the Uberoffs and the Duceys and the
all the ones we're forgetting. Sorry.
Yeah, Pat.
It's like thanking your sponsors.
Zennies. Yeah. But yeah, there's a Zinfandel, like Jake said, is our flagship. It's our history. It's kind of our roots. The very first vineyard that we planted in Peachy Canyon, on Peachy Canyon Road, where Jake and I grew up, was the Zinfandel. We've actually propagated those plants from that ranch to this ranch today, where we're sitting, and bounced it around to a couple blocks within this ranch.
How many varietal or how many clones of Zin do we have now?
We are, as a Zin aficionado, the Peachy Canyon Winery, it's kind of in our roots of who we are. We have, I think I counted 23 or 25 different Zinfandel clones amongst our 5 ranches now, which is pretty unheard of. But it's because of our Davis block or D block, if you're familiar with the Peachy wines.
We should try that one.
Yeah, we will do a webinar of the D block, which
we used to do 18 clones in one bottle.
Right.
So it's 18 or 19?
18 in that block. It'd be cool to try them all in one setting, the individual clones.
That'd be a long sitting. You guys
Long
sitting. Well, at least we're all stuck at home, got nothing to do but booze and teach our kids, not necessarily in that order or in that order. For me, it helps. So we don't do homework till nighttime. I'm sure a lot of your children are being educated by day drinkers, but nighttime seems to work for us.
I did see a funny cartoon about that.
Yeah, that Kermit one?
Yeah, Kermit the Frog.
Lots of good memes and cartoons coming out right now.
Yeah, I hope everybody is safe and healthy and trying to make the most of these times right now that we're all going through. We're all thinking about each other and family and friends and trying to support our restaurants and local.
Yeah, the best we can, take out, making light of the situation while taking it seriously. Interesting time. So, which has led to this, obviously. But
what is the oldest? So we do have some old vines planted here at the Mustang Springs.
It was planted by the Surratt boys in the 50s.
Right. That's our oldest estate vines. We have sourced fruit from older vines throughout Paso, like the Ducey vineyards that were planted in the 20s.
That's for you, Brett Poppin.
Yeah. Hope you're doing well, Brett. Brent.
Brett. Such a brat.
So there are, the Martinellis. There is older vine. The Uberoff, the Martinelli, the Duceys, the Pezzentis. Those are probably the older Zin plantings in Paso Robles. But yeah, some of the block here at the winery was planted by the Surratt.
And did Paderewski bring it over? Is that the originator for Central Coast Zins, or what's his connection to it?
I would hate to.
I don't know.
I would say it wrong.
Or dumb.
But there's definitely a correlation.
If you like pianos and you like wine, you're gonna love Paderewski. So when it comes to this wine, should we?
Talking about the wine for a minute. We're gonna go on. We have other questions coming in about dry farm grapes and browse, but the West Side is a very approachable, not overly oaked wine. It's true to the character or the varietal of Zinfandel. It's got those nice strawberry, raspberry, cranberry fruits. It's a beautiful color.
little white pepper.
Some white pepper, a little spice. All those things that you're looking for in Zinfandel.
Which is why we call it our classic label. We have, our legacy stuff that we do our vineyard designates under. We consider it classic, and not because, well, for two reasons. It's the original label style and design that our parents came up with 32 years ago. And also it's stylistically a classic Zinfandel, really bright. Like Josh said, not over the top alcohol, oak bomb. It's got a nice balance.
No residual sugar.
And fermented dry, it's clean, it's extremely food friendly, and it's a sit down and enjoy by itself also. So it's just a really versatile, nice, approachable, everyday Zin, I think. And
Production,
really
I think. Production's about 5,000.
Production's about 5,000. Yeah. So right around there. And that's why, we're still purchasing some fruit outside of our estate. So we are making approximately 5,000 cases of this, most of which we're buying from our other growers around us here on the west side. But in the next 3 vintages, we will have enough of our estate fruit, which we have 102 acres of estate, not all Zinfandel, but 102 acres of estate vineyard. Eventually it will be all estate, but yeah, right around 5K.
Yeah, and it does get, currently some Mustang Springs goes in it, Mustard Creek goes in it, some Snow used to go in it, and then now that an old schoolhouse used to go in it, but as we've removed vineyards, replanted vineyards for different reasons, and like Jake said, they're all about to come online. It will be 100% estate, and we're very excited.
Yeah,
it's going to be phenomenal.
Rad. Maybe 2020.
Yes, yeah. We are looking at this coming harvest 2020 will be 99%, 95% estates.
We have another question, I think. I see her. What varieties are most dry farmed? As far as which varieties are we dry farming the most of, or what variety is most dry farmed in general? The most Zinfandel is our largest portion of dry farm property, if that's the question.
And if you're around Paso, I think that would be a pretty good assumption. Because of the older vineyards that have been around for a long time, are predominantly all Zin based. If not, they're mixed black vineyards, which is another conversation with the old Zin vineyards planted around California that are interplanted with other varietals as well, like Petite Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre, Alicante. But in Paso Robles, I would say a lot of it is Zin or majority Zin, but we have dry farm Petite Syrah that we source. There's dry farm Tannat we source from. Dry farm Graciano, Tempranillo. We
dry farm Petite Syrah, Grenache, Mourvèdre. We got some
Carignan, Primitivo, Cunoise.
That's all.
Malbec. Malbec, I don't know any of
Don't dry farm Malbec.
Yeah.
Turns out.
That we're making head prunes.
Or leaf kickers every year, maybe 2. It's killer fruit, but it doesn't seem to throw very much of it when it's trained, head trained, and dry farm style farming.
But the quality, yes, phenomenal.
It's epic.
You just don't get very much.
Yeah, you get like a glass per plant. See a lot of plants. You didn't drink a lot of glasses. Many red wines give me a headache. How many bottles are you drinking?
Or why doesn't Westside though? Well, I think you can correlate that sometimes some people are allergic to sulfites. Some wines have higher levels of sulfites in them. Depending on the wines you're drinking, I definitely know when you get into large production wines where they have to be a lot more careful with their wines and be a lot more.
They just got to have like a recipe and stick to it. So they'll hammer them with sulfites, a real huge production. And they tend to be, because they can't risk the wines going bad, some of the larger production red wines might have an elevated sulfite level. Just so you know, most food has sulfites in it also. So it's not
different levels,
red wine.
different level. But yeah, so
Westside's awesome. That's why
it has very low sulfite addition, very minimal. It doesn't have zero. We do add a little for the preservation, but the molecular stability or the pH of the wine comes into where we don't have to add a lot of sulfites. The fruit's very clean.
And we're relatively small production,
yeah.
so we get to micromanage it. We don't have to just, we don't have to have an insurance policy in this bottle. Our team does a really good job producing clean wines and not sulfiting, just to make sure that
it's protected.
It's protected
Like
we have a million bottles
we're not
going
worried.
out because we don't. When will Westside Zin be 100% estate? Wow.
It might actually be the 2019. It'd be really close 2019 vintage, but 2020.
2020,
sure.
We're calling it.
Yeah, 2020, which
short of some sort of disaster.
Yeah.
2020,
20, and like we do have enough, I think, if Jake and I, with our goals for production and the amount of fruit that we could, because the old schoolhouse came on vintage in 19. So between the 2019 vintage will predominantly be Mustard Creek, Mustang Springs, Old Schoolhouse. And then after that, 2021, 22 will be the addition of Snow and Kyler.
Yeah, Snow and Kyler. So we're getting close. One of the things that's allowing us to do this too is we've actually, we've shrunk our production and gotten more hands-on with everything. And rather than trying to be everywhere all the time, we've focused on smaller productions, higher quality, while maintaining a great price point, an affordable wine. But because we're slowly evolving into a 100% estate, we control, our prices are somewhat controlled for us, other than our cost of farming goes up, but we're able to deliver, I feel, better wines. We work with great growers, but we take pride in our farming. We're able to deliver some really solid, if not better wines when we are estate. And that's why we want the Westside to be 100% estate, because we feel like we can step up the level, controlling it ourselves from dirt to bottle. Richard from the Netherlands, do you use malolactic yeast in the Westside?
No, it's all native malo. It's slow. We still have 2019s going through malo. As we go into winter, coming into spring, we're topping everything last week and beginning of this week, and checking mallows. They're ticking along, still moving slow as it's been really cold in the cellar, but as we get into summer, spring going into summer, we'll warm up and they'll definitely kick off.
So can you explain what Richard's question means for the people watching this that don't know what malolactic fermentation
So
is?
there's primary fermentation where yeasts consume sugar and convert that into alcohol. And in malolactic to lactic, where secondary fermentation, is when the malic eats the lactic acid, and really it's like it takes the harshness or sharpness or the ml and lactic acid. You really see that a lot in white wines, and you can really pick it up.
The acidic versus the buttery.
Right. But with reds, it's all natural, native yeast. Very fortunate. Have a clean cellar. Yeast are all over in the air, so we're pretty happy with that. Some years are a little harder than others to get it to finish and get through, but we usually get there.
14 Especial. We have a question.
14 Especial. What's different in flavor profile?
So the question is, we didn't have the Westside and we feel like drinking, so we opened a 14 Especial. Cheers to that. That's a solid wine. And the question is, what's the difference in the flavor profile between the two of them? I think Josh can address that.
I think predominantly, one is the Especial as estate. That's 100% estate. 100% from in 2014 was from what we have at our Especial block here at the winery.
Right over there.
Yeah, right, kind of behind you guys over here, which was cuttings that we took from our original Peachy Canyon Vineyard, which was the Doozy clone that we propagated here to the Mustang Springs Ranch. That's one main difference where it's one block from our estate vineyard. But also when you get to Especial, I would say, if I remember correctly, it was 100. We only do about 25 to 30% new oak on all of our wines. And the Especial would be predominantly, the new wood would be French oak, where Westside gets a little bit of American and French. The Especial gets only new French.
And how would that
A
affect
little-
the
a little
flavor,
amount.
the flavor
Be
profile?
a little bit, American oak lends it a little bit richer, a little more extraction, a little bit sweeter.
A little more of an oak punch.
Yeah,
too.
a little bit more, even though it's
Quicker.
we do a little amount so you don't get a large oak impact. It's still a little bit more predominant, where the French oak with the tighter grain is a much more elegant barrel, slower extraction, lighter oak impact than the American would have.
So the Especial is probably a little more elegant and more refined, and it has maybe a softer oak notes to it.
And then, yeah, it's like,
So without tasting it right here with you, I
this
you
is a
could
little
pop
more
another
fruity,
cork.
I think.
It's gonna be
Westside's
hammered.
fruity and, you know, right. It's a yummy wine, where Especial, you're going to sit down and think about it, and it's a little more complex.
Yeah.
And a little,
More dynamic. It's like Shrek. It's like an onion. It has layers. Not that Westside does.
How are fruit and spice flavors infused into the wines? Well, these fruits and spices are not infused in the wines. These are natural flavors and aromatics that come in red wine or red wine grapes and white wine grapes.
That's interesting. So it would be natural to think that we're actually putting it in, kind of like beer, where they infuse it with, you know, they make peach, like apricot ales and things like that. We do not add, I've heard of people adding like chocolate and things like that. We don't add anything to our grapes or to our wines. Those are flavors that we pick up on through sensory evaluation, and some people pick up on different flavors and different aromas that other people don't necessarily catch. You know, we all have different taste buds. I'm not the best at it. With me, mostly when I talk about wines, I talk about, I like this, I do not like this. A lot of times, if you're with somebody who's got a really good nose or is able to sort of pick the smells that they're smelling, I can't always identify it, but they'll let you know what they're smelling, and then you smell it, and you'll be like, wow, that I actually get that now. So it can help. Sometimes that's just them saying it, and so you think they're smelling it. But answer your question is, we don't infuse anything in our wines. Those are naturally occurring flavors and spicy notes and aromas, and they really are there. But they're not coming directly from whatever we're describing, like an old Pinot Noir that somebody describes as bacon fat and barnyard. They did not shovel horse pucky in it, and there's not bacon strips either.
But don't be afraid to think you smell or taste something, because like Jake said, we all smell and taste different things. So there's no right or wrong answer.
Hopefully. If you
yeah.
can't smell anything, you might want to do something about that.
Oh, somebody saw one of the dogs. We try to keep all the dogs
Barbara,
out.
come on.
Oh, we bring one dog can say hi.
Nacho.
He keeps sneaking around. He's like, please, can I talk? You could say hi, Barbara. This is Nacho. There's 5 other dogs outside waiting at the door trying to come in. Somehow he snuck in. But yeah, okay, good.
So
good.
Westside that stands out. One of the questions we have, another question we have is there a vintage of the Westside that stands out? I'm assuming you're asking us if there's something that's more memorable than other vintages of Westside.
I think right now the most recent, or if we're just going back a couple of vintages, tasting and one that's standing out, the 15 vintage is showing very nice. You know, it's only 3 years, you know, two years back from the 17, but it's
5 years old.
yeah, it's still getting up there. You know, Zinfandel is not a wine that we lay down or recommend laying down like old Bordeaux's and old Burgundies and Rhones. It doesn't, don't get me wrong, I've had wines from the Zinfandels from the 70s that are very phenomenal and special and unique in their own right. But Zinfandel also is very approachable, and we really like him. Our dad used to always say, you know, the peak of their youth.
Yeah.
But they have lots of fruit, and they're bright and fresh, and when they go straight to the bottle, the wine we came up with, that we want you to share with you, is kind of the wine we like to drink now.
It's a fruit-driven varietal,
right.
And it's not something that it's not a varietal that's heavy tannins.
And a lot of
tannins help wines age. Some of those, the Bordeaux or Rhone wines that Josh was talking about, they tend to have higher contents of tannins, which allow them to age much longer. The thing that goes first in wines as it ages generally is the fruit, and Zinfandel's fruit-driven. So youthful Zins tend to be our favorite. But like Josh said, we've had some old Zins that are epic.
The difference between different vintages, different years, depends. If you go back more than 6 years before Robert Hansen would be the winemaker, that would be when Terry Colton was here for a little bit. And then if you go
different
back
chefs.
before him, that was me. If you go, you know, I think now with like the last 6 years, if you look at Robert's wines, the different vintages would be maybe the vineyards he's sourcing from, how many tons from each vineyard he got, what barrel cooperages he used in each year.
We've had winemakers that worked them a little more than others, so they're maybe cleaner and maybe lighter, but still good.
Different styles.
One of Rob's fortes is that he's super anal retentive, Robert Henson, our winemaker, and he really keeps the volatile acidity down at bay. And so these past few vintages we've had are really bright and smooth, and I don't know, they're fun.
Clean.
They're clean, but not clean because they're overworked.
No.
Clean meaning he just takes care of it.
There's no
puts all the
flaws.
pride into it. Yeah.
They're not flawed with, you know, they're not out of balance or flawed.
We're getting the curtain pulled.
All right. Okay. So we want to first recommend everybody to join us next week for the 2017 Petite Syrah, which is also another fun grape that goes very well with Zinfandel, that we have planted at 4 of our estate. 4 out of 5 vineyards do have Petite Syrah as well for Peachy Canyon. We make a black label Petite that is going out in your new wine club shipment that we are packing today for any wine club members. That is phenomenal. And then we also make a Petite Syrah for the broad market to sail alongside the Westside.
Classic Petite.
Classic Petite. Teaser.
The teaser is?
Love the gamey, the black fruit, the blueberry. We go in Zinfandel and Petite, or Zin, you know, and Rhone, there's red fruits and then there's black fruits. And that's a good distinction. If you're trying a Zin and trying a Petite, think, wow, this is strawberries, raspberries, this is blueberries, blackberries. They're very different.
And if you're curious, this is the same price as the Westside. We'll talk more about that next week.
Make sure you order some and have it. You will enjoy, I promise. And it's, again, a wine that over-delivers the price to quality, for sure.
Yeah. So life's too short to drink junky wines. Drink good wines.
And drink Paso wines.
Paso.
Don't forget, support all your Paso brands across the nation, across the globe. Support, you know, if you're drinking wine, if you're thinking wine, drink Paso, and especially Peachy Canyon.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. It's really cool. I wish we could see you, talk to you. This is as close as we're going to get for now. However, we'd love to see you in our tasting room once we can reopen. But thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch our talking heads and drink some wine with us.
RSVPA online at peachycanyon.com. Videos available online, and if you got more questions, we can address them next week as well. If you think of something and we didn't get to it today,
keep it coming. Stump us.
Yeah, it might be raining next week, hopefully.
Woo! Yeah, one last rain. There's a tarantula in the garden this morning. So, anyway. Peace out. Are we off? Are we on?
Thank you. Thank you for everything. Enjoy.
Happy Thursday.